So let's head to the southern coast of Sri Lanka. There, you'll find this place, Galle Fort. And I mean, it is absolutely stunning, built up over centuries of history. But here's the thing. If you look just a little closer, past all that picturesque beauty, you find a city that's really struggling with its own identity. It is truly a city at a crossroads. So let's get into why. Now, the first thing you really got to get about Galle Fort is that this isn't some museum piece, you know? It's not a ruin sitting behind a velvet rope. It's a living, breathing city. People live here, work here. And that's exactly where the problem starts. This life is creating a huge clash between its famous past and some really intense pressures of today. Okay, so to really wrap our heads around the crossroads it's at now, we've got to go back. We need to look at how this place was even built in the first place. The whole story of the fort is basically a story of empires clashing, and each one left its own mark, right there in the stone. So this whole thing plays out over a few hundred years of colonial rule. It kicked off pretty simply back in 1588 with the Portuguese. But the real game changer, that was after 1649. The Dutch showed up and started building the massive fortress that we still see today. And then the British came in after 1796 and added the final touches, like that iconic main gate and the lighthouse. And what's just fascinating here is the difference in, well, ambition. The first Portuguese fort, super basic, we're talking mud, palm trees, coral. But the Dutch, wow, they saw just how important the spot was strategically, and they went all in. They wrapped the whole peninsula in 14 enormous bastions made of granite and coral, basically building a full-on European fortress smack dab in the middle of South Asia. So eventually, the empires faded away, the cannons stopped firing, and the fort's whole reason for being started to change. It wasn't about war anymore. It slowly turned from this military outpost into something completely different, a cultural treasure that people from all over the world celebrate. And then, in 1988, it became official. UNESCO designated it a World Heritage Site. And the reason why really hits the nail on the head. They said it's not just a European fort. It's this amazing blend, this living conversation between European architecture and South Asian traditions that's been going on for hundreds of years. And the coolest part is, you can literally walk through this history today. I mean, wander down the streets and you'll pass the Dutch Reformed Church from way back in 1755. Then, a little further, there's a mosque built in 1904. And then an Anglican church from 1871. It's like every building is a different chapter in this incredible multicultural story. And see, that's what makes it so special. This place isn't a museum. It's a home. Every single day, people walk these cobblestone streets, a really diverse community of folks whose families have been here for generations. It creates this amazing, living, breathing tapestry of cultures. But, and you knew there was a but, right? That vibrancy, that UNESCO status, the sheer beauty of it all, it's actually created a totally new kind of problem. The fort's success has come with a really high price tag. And honestly, it's a story you see playing out in historic cities all over the world, places like Venice or Cartagena. Okay, get ready for this number, because it is staggering. Since the fort got that World Heritage status back in '88, it has lost 2/3 of its local residents. Just let that sink in for a second. 2 out of every 3 families that used to live there are gone. And here's where it gets kind of weird. The people left, but the number of buildings went up. Since 1988, the number of structures inside the fort has shot up from about 350 to over 500. So, what's going on? Where did all the people go, and what in the world are all these new buildings for? Well, the answer, in one word, is gentrification. As soon as tourism exploded, investors, both foreign and local, smelled an opportunity. They started buying up these beautiful historic family homes, a lot of times from residents who could really use the cash. And what did they do? They turned them into fancy hotels, luxury villas, and souvenir shops. And of course, that sent property values skyrocketing, which just forced even more locals to leave. There's this quote from a local banker that it gets right to the heart of what's being lost here. For him, the fort isn't just a city. It's his gigima, his village. It's who he is. And that's a connection, that deep-rooted feeling that money just can't buy. And you hear these stories, for the folks who did sell, yeah, they got some money, but it came with this huge emotional cost. Like this one former resident who sold his family home, a place just full of memories. He talks about this deep regret and that feeling of loss. You hear it all over the community. So, all of this brings us to the biggest question of all, right? What does preservation even mean for a place like Galle Fort? Are we just trying to save the old stones and the walls? Or are we trying to save the soul of the city, its people? Let's take a look at what could be a path forward. Well, a lot of experts are saying the focus needs to shift big time. Forget policies that just help outside investors. The idea is a community-centered approach that actually empowers the local residents. We're talking about laws and financial help that allow people to afford to stay in their homes, to develop their own properties, so they become the ones who benefit from all this tourism, instead of being pushed out by it. And really, at the end of the day, this is the question that Galle Fort asks all of us, a question that applies to so many historic places. If you save the beautiful old walls, but you lose the generations of people who actually gave that place its life, what have you really saved?